So I'm Kimberly, and I'm here today to talk about my experience with the zone. Well, I kind of wanted to step back and tell you a little bit about my story. And over the past last year, I unfortunately lost my mother. And then about 3 months after that, I got a devastating diagnosis of stage 4 breast cancer right out of the gate. So this is not a reoccurrent of breast cancer. This was my first time diagnosis. And so my mind and I got swept away on the whirlwind of not only grieving for my mother, but grieving for my loss of my health and control of my health, and the stress that comes along with a devastating diagnosis of cancer. And a little bit more background on me, as I'm a PhD scientist, so I'm an immunologist by training. So the first thing I focused on was my body, and I wanted to go through as much therapy as I could to get rid of the cancer in my body. And so I went through chemo, and I did 1 round of chemo unsuccessfully, which was stopped early. Then I went on to a full surgery and intensive radiation, where they wanted to go after it as if I had been an earlier stage cancer because of the limited disease that was in my body. So they thought that they would go through the full course of radiation. And so I focused on that for a good portion of a year, and I was focused on really getting rid of the cancer in my body. But however, after that was finished, I was really fatigued. I had a lot of energy issues. I had no energy. I was constantly tired, and I have a job where I have to function at a very high level. I travel, I cover 4 states, and I just did not have the energy. And so I started looking at alternative things that I can add on to my therapy that I'm currently on, and I started reading more about alternative medicine. And so I did add a radical lifestyle change, diet, and supplements, but I kept reading about that you had to have the mind, body, and spirit. You had to look at every domain of your life. And I had been focusing so much on the body that I had let out and forgot about. I think serendipity played a role in bringing me to the zone. I ran into a woman who, a common friend of Barbara's, and we started talking about my grief of my mother and my cancer, and she had recommended that I come to the zone. She called it a magical machine, and I really didn't know what it was all about, but she just said, you need to call Barbara. I called her immediately. I came in, I did a session with Barbara, and then she took me into the zone, and I did my first session. And I really didn't know what to expect, and I will say that when I got into the zone, I was able to have a completely release and relax my mind. Barbara takes you through kind of a guided meditation, and she focused for me on healing. And for the first time, I don't think, when I tried to meditate at home or listen to meditation tapes, I'm always thinking I have to go to the grocery store, I have to get my plane tickets, I have to do my expense report, but my mind is never quiet. And I think what I experienced here at the zone is, for that hour session, I was completely relaxed, and I was trying to focus on things that needed to be fixed or repaired in my mind. I think the way I would describe it, and the hour went very, very fast. Before I knew it, it felt like 10 minutes, and they were taking me out of the zone. And so they always ask, how did you feel? Well, I didn't feel anything necessarily, anything that I could put my finger on, other than I was completely relaxed. And I just felt like everything, all of my anxiety and worries, I could just, my mind was quiet. I wasn't on this obsessive loop of worrying about my body and worrying about my disease, and I could just take some of my stress and push it away. And this was on a Thursday, and so it was very interesting. So Thursday I went home, we did it at the end of the day, and I went home and I had a great rest. I slept very peacefully that night. And then on Friday I went to work like usual, and I noticed Friday night that I actually went to the gym, which is completely unlike me, because my fatigue was so great that by about 5:30 I was ready to be put into bed and to not be doing that much around the house. So I went and I worked out that night. And then on Saturday I noticed that I woke up and I went hiking, and then I came home and I was doing chores around the house, and I cleaned the house, and that night I went out and I was shopping at night, and I never leave the house to go shopping in the evening. And on Sunday I woke up and I went, for a ride with my horse. And then by Sunday evening I started feeling like a little bit fatigue coming in. So I called Barbara and I said I need to get back in the zone. And I noticed that as I used the zone, it was incremental. So my energy levels have been staying up, my mood is improved, and my worries have kind of dissipated. I travel a lot, so I can't get in here on a weekly basis, but I do. My body's telling me to come back. It feels like my body wants to come back to the zone to get that reconnection between my mind and body, and to have that. I've read a lot about harmonics, and I kept stumbling across harmonics and different harmonic frequencies, and I'm just so happy that I was able to include this type of session or therapy into my holistic approach. So I'm doing the conventional therapies, I'm doing alternative therapies for my body, I'm working with Barbara with the zone to address my mind, body, spirit connection. People with breast cancer, reach out to me through Barbara and the zone. I'd be happy to talk with you further about my experience with the zone. And I just hope that more people will check it out and include it into their holistic approach to their therapy. So I wanted to also point out that when I was talking about the mind being a very powerful thing that I was not addressing, is that when you have elevated levels of anxiety and stress that I was going through with my diagnosis and through the grieving process from my mother, is I have a tendency to deal with anxiety through being very obsessive in my thought process, more like an OCD type of thinking, where I get caught on that hamster wheel, and all I do is I keep going around and around with these emotions and this anxiety. And I think one of the things that I dealt with my whole life, and maybe even part of the reason why I developed cancer, is because of my OCD type of high anxiety person that I suffered with from childhood. And I noticed that immediately. One of the first things that I noticed when I drove away from the zone was that obsessive thinking was gone. So the first thing I really, almost instantaneously, that I've never accomplished in my whole life, was I'd say that it was automatically like a light switch, where that obsessive thinking was completely gone. And then, like I described earlier, that what I noticed the next day was the increase in my energy and the fatigue going away. But I think that when you're in that level of anxiety, that your mind has a hold on your whole entire body. We know that stress is a direct correlation to many different diseases that we have, cancer and other chronic illnesses. And we know that you have high levels of cortisol, which have an impact on your immune system and a negative impact on the majority of your organs in your body. So I think what I was able to do with the zone was to remove that anxiety from my life, and to let my body begin to heal. And I was very pleased with the results. So I hope my story has helped explain my experience with the zone. And I just wanted to end that, and I'm actually off to the zone right now, and I'm going to go experience another session right now to end my testimony. So that's it. I'm off to the zone.